it feels like it's going to be one of those coaching calls. So, you paid for the 45 minutes. Okay, let's do that 45 minutes.
Right. So, yeah.
Now you know the tricks, right?
Oh, my God. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Did you finish the book?
No, I am about 3/3 of the way through, but I'm into it.
Did you just say 3/3?
Yeah, no, 2/3. 2/3. Okay. So good fight there. Yes, 3/3 would be the whole book. Yes,
that would be. Dominic, did you get it done?
I am 3/3 of the way through. So I'm like Arvin. I went to 3/3.
Right. Well, it's because you're an overachiever, right?
No, I surprised myself because last night I finished it, and then I'm like, oh my God, I finished it. This is amazing.
So I have to admit, I'm like 2 7/8 thirds.
Okay.
I had about 20 pages to go, and I started reading them this morning, and all I ended up was going back and reading other stuff again. So so actually we're recording now, so I want to actually give a shout out to Jesse, Lynn, and Finley, and hopefully if you watch this, your hospital trip is short and productive, and it's nothing too serious. So all our love, Jesse, Lynn, and Finley. And I was blown away by this book. I was blown away. I will admit that although I took a lot from the case studies, I've read tons of case studies. It's like every single 3P book has case studies, has examples in it. Getting to read about Elsie and Judith early on, I thought was very, very cool, and how they saw things. But for me, man, the second part of the book is just like, holy shit. Like, to me, it's just nugget after nugget after nugget. And all I was thinking was, what he's talking about seemed in my mind as I was reading it to be the convergence of 3P and coaching. And it was, and my thought was, okay, let's ask Dominic about that. Like, because like I said, to me, like, I understand the value of coaching structure. I believe I do anyway. And everything that Jack is talking about to me seems like, the beyond black belt stuff, where things are coming intuitive. Yeah. Anyway, Dominic, what do you like?
That part of the book, when the case studies were done, and first off, I guess I want to say about the case studies, I had never come across with 3P, like, probably just based on the books that I'd read, like that level of depth around the case studies. Like, I always heard the little story, and then this person got over that thing, and so I heard those little bits. But what was powerful about this book is like the life-changing big perspective. Like the way you heard, here's this woman, and then she was a heroin addict, and it was like, and to get that big picture of what it was then, and then what happened, and then what the insight was around, like, that's huge. It was like a whole life perspective of the impact. And it was case study after case study after, it was, story after story after story, all in the beginning. That was amazing. And what a cool thing too, to get like, Elsie Spittle and Judith Sedgman in there, and so that we could kind of see people we know as well. Like, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't expecting then, in the second part of the book, it was a great surprise where Jack basically took a step back and kind of picked out the form of how things happened. I wasn't expecting that.
No, nor was I.
So it was amazing because, to your point, I come at it from coaching, and professional coaching with a structure and skill requirements and a certain structure to a coaching conversation. And so when I got to that part, again, big surprise, I wasn't expecting to find it there, but then to read this sort of learning and insight and the way he themed together maybe some commonalities. It's like he went on a bit of an inquiry around, wow, what is it that makes it work? Like, what made it work? What were some patterns or flow around it? And as I got into it, like, for instance, the deep listening was one that was simple. Like, that was such a strong resonance that I had. When I read that one, I'm reading like what he's saying about the deep listening and all of those pieces. And I'm realizing I can just see it in my coach training. It's like in my coach training and how I'm trained and what they check for, and so some of the things that they'll talk about in that, I'm reading it in as he's describing, deep listening.
That's where it seems like there is some kind of a convergence of the two, right? At their best. It feels to me like you're moving between the two.
Yes. And he has points in there, like, where, he came up with stuff, but like where he distinguishes things, seeing people from a perspective of health. And then he says having fun with people. Like it's kind of like when I'm thinking about in a coaching, like, I say that I hold people capable. I see them as creative, resourceful, whole, and complete. I like, so there's kind of a way I see them that's helpful. And he points out so many things. And he said building hope, like that was another area that he talked about. And I know I shared with you a book around solution-focused coaching. Well, solution-focused coaching completely goes in that direction of hope. And what is that? And so it was interesting to see what he pulled out and kind of called out, and then to see, oh my God, that's what others have learned from different modalities. But it's what makes something work. And it was great to see the commonality.
I really loved his description of vertical questions versus horizontal questions. Oh yeah. I was like, holy shit, I must have read that. Like, I think that's the section I kept coming back to this morning when I was trying to finish the book, is like, yeah, that really struck me, that, a vertical question has, well, I mean, he uses the word has depth, or is deep. But the notion of horizontal questioning, and I got, it was just, again, it's funny how the universe seems to work, but the coaching call that I had recently that sucked was all, I mean, I could, like in reading the description that Jack sort of laid, the blueprint that Jack sort of laid out, is like, oh, I fucked that up, I fucked that up, fucked that up. But it was in the horizontal questioning. I got caught up in just asking her to tell me more about what she already knew and what I already knew. I mean, hell, I probably knew at the moment she started talking, to be truthful, but it's just, I couldn't see. Yeah. I got caught in it. I couldn't get, I mean, we did eventually get out of it, but yeah, that distinction in the type of questioning was just like that jumped off the page to me, man. Like, that was neat. Arvind, have you gotten to that section yet?
No, I haven't got to the point where they were talking about horizontal versus vertical questions.
Yeah, when I changed locations, I realized I left my book downstairs, so I can't pull it up. But
it's that the vertical question. You mean just pointing to the fact of life? That's what, or asking questions that lead to them to realize a fact of life.
They go in that direction.
Okay.
They're going versus, well, I guess the easiest is versus a horizontal question that remains interested in the form or content of what they're talking about.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, so you don't have enough money. Well, what is it? So do you have a job? What are you doing? What's
Yeah.
tough about this? And is it a matter of getting more clients? What's like, those are horizontal. I just stay in the form and content.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good way of describing that. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And vertical would be obviously, like, well, are you always feeling anxious?
That's what
Are
I
you
was just going to get.
always noticing that you're worried? Oh, you're not. Well, what about when you're not? And does your bank account change? Oh, so it's the same bank account, but then sometimes you're not worried. What's that all about? Like, so that's a very different question.
Okay, yeah. No, I get. Okay, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too. When you are thinking in the same way what they are thinking, you are in the same level, right? When you're
Nice.
pointing to the how the life works, it's I think that for vertical questioning means just to point to the how fact of life is.
Yeah.
Rest of it are just stories, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Horizontal engages their stories. It gauges what they've already told you, basically, or
Mm-hmm.
or it asks them for more detail about what they've already told you, rather than challenging what they've. Yeah, challenging is maybe not the right word in this context, but
Yeah.
the example that Jack uses is the vertical question would be, "Is that true?"
Mm.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
which is what Dominic just sort of laid out too. What the bank account, well, is it always the same? No, it's just I was blown away by it. I started reading it. It's like,
I just like started looking at all of those aspects, and to me they were mapping on as these great distinctions that are powerful for coaching. Like, so I'm reading it kind of going, boy, this make me a better coach.
well, it's funny because Jack's been. So I did, I've done a couple of retreats with Jack, and there was nothing new in the book that he didn't mention on the retreats as well. But seeing it in print at this point in my whatever my development is, like it had more of an impact. I saw more in it than I had before, and yeah, I'm gonna have to message him and say, holy shit, that's a good book, Jack.
Really is.
What there was one other thing that really jumped out. So the vertical and horizontal. Well, there are lots of things, but vertical and horizontal, and then oh yeah, the the emphasis on the place of curiosity,
Mm.
and not having an agenda was really, again, coming off. My last session with Sun was yesterday. The day before, I had one that was terrible, and in one, I felt curious and engaged, and in the other one, I felt, oh God, okay, here's like, it was like, whatever concept I had around the one session was impeding my ability to be an empty vessel, as Jack said, or to be curious. So it was a real contrast. And then reading it again was it was really neat, like how easy it is to get caught up and impose your concept of that moment into the conversation. Because all of a sudden I was teaching, I heard her say, she made a comment about thinking and symptoms. And I just launched into explaining thought. And of course, and it wasn't even a Zoom call; it was just an audio, and I could see her going, just deflating.
Wow.
And then I asked her, I said, "Well, is this resonating with you?" And she's like, "No, it's not." So we've been going along fine, sort of in curiosity, kind of bantering back and forth. I heard something that I thought, okay, here's an opportunity to teach. And I totally lost the plot in that moment. So, oh yeah, no, and you could feel it. Boom, gone. Oh, fuck. But
so that's good. You could feel it.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Good. A lot of people can't feel that.
Oh.
That's very good.
Really? Because it was like someone dropped a rock on my foot.
Yeah, no, a lot of people can't feel that. They don't get it, right? Or they justify it some other way, like, oh, the person wasn't listening, they're not ready to listen. Like they'll say all kinds of other things, as opposed to realizing and feeling it and kind of go, whoa, what just happened there? What did I just cause? Interesting.
Yeah, it was. I'm a little bit taken aback that that people wouldn't pick up on that. Like, I mean, I trust what you're saying, obviously, but I had a thought while I was reading that Jack talks about holding an intention or coming with an intention, and earlier on he describes, having a curious mindset. And what went through my mind was, well, if you're focused on having a curious mindset, then it's still additive in a way. You're still adding a concept that you're viewing the conversation through. So I was a little bit critical when he mentioned it the first time, and then later on he talks about just setting an intention. And that might sound paradoxical because, you're setting up a layer from which to view the conversation. So I just found it neat that when he mentioned it the first time, I heard it sort of through my lens. The second time he talks about it, he says, well, all you're doing is setting an intention and then forgetting about it.
Yeah.
That you're not carrying it with you. And that really resonated for me as well. Because like I said, my first instinct when he suggested it was, well, then I'm thinking about intent. Like then I'm putting something into my mind to hold through the conversation. And that's not what he was saying.
I really like how he said that. I actually read that a few times because I've never heard that before in 3P. Even when I did Super Coach Academy, I thought, in Super Coach Academy, they'll talk about Michael Neal, his coaching model, he'll say is, and by the way, it may have changed because I think when I did it, it was just prior to it becoming more of a coaching structure to it. Right. But anyway, at that time, his coaching model was 2 steps, which was show up and respond to what shows up.
Right.
And at first that sounded kind of cool, but then I realized, wait a minute, something's missing in the model. And the part that I saw that was missing is intention.
Right.
Because I could show up and respond to what shows up in any conversation. That would be a useful thing to do.
Sure, yeah.
In any area of life, I show up and respond to what shows up. But when I'm going to have a coaching conversation, then already I'm calling it something. I am distinguishing it.
Yeah.
So I am distinguishing it from anything else. So if I'm going to do that, what is it about that? And what Jack's pointing to, which is to say, I set an intention, right? So I have an intention. I will, be on your side. We will have a conversation for 1 hour that is completely about you. And my intention is that it be about you and that it be about you going to what you want. That's my intention. And yeah, now I can drop that, but that is a structure inside which I'll have this conversation with you.
Right.
Arvin, we've left you out. We
need
you back.
Yeah, sorry, dude.
No, I'm here. I'm hearing all this. Go ahead.
well, so what about you? What was, because wherever you're at, you probably have some you passed through a lot of those case studies, I'm sure. So what's standing out for you?
Well, the book I'm pretty much, most of it I forgot.
Yeah.
I read it, I just feel something, then I forget about the whole stuff. Then eventually when I am talking to people, it just kind of goes in the direction that's supposed to, rather than me thinking, oh, this is how I'm supposed to talk and this is how I'm supposed to say things, and all that stuff goes out of the mind. I just say whatever comes to me, and hopefully that will impact people. Otherwise, I'm good with it too.
Love it.
So yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody. I'm just, he's a business partner, wherever. So, he's going through some physical issue where he had to go to a surgery, and he's not comfortable, and he's overthinking all this stuff, and being anxious about how it's going to play out eventually. So before I would have said something along the line, don't worry, it would be fine and all that stuff. But this time I didn't feel I need to say all that stuff. So I sat there and I just pointed, have you ever always felt anxious, all the time? And he's like, no, I just feel it because I am going to the surgery. And I'm like, so you, as soon as you constantly feel anxiousness from that point onward to now? He's like, no, I just feel it when I am thinking about it. I'm having a normal conversation, but I am not into their story now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
before I would be in their story, consoling, just saying things that, it would be all fine, don't worry, all that stuff. But now I am not thinking about that way. I'm just pointing them to see their own reaction to whatever they heard.
Yeah.
Then it all went quiet. So we were driving and he just went quiet for a while. I'm like, okay, yeah, I just shut up now and wait for him to come back.
You know, what's really cool about that is it's a great reminder of how we can't miss, because the three principles are true. So it's sort of like, what are we doing anyway? It's just true, right? It's just true, and it's overlooked. And so you can't really miss or go wrong. So Arvind, you're just having this conversation, and just because it's true and you ask a few questions, all of a sudden he's saying what's true.
Yeah.
No, I'm not anxious all the time, only when I'm thinking about it. It's kind of...
Yeah, this is like I have noticed that I have changed the way I ask question. Even though I'm not coaching, I'm just talking to regular people, whoever I'm meeting. When the conversation of, they are feeling not so good about whatever the situation they are in, I automatically kind of ask the question, like, just to be, just to kind of like show them, this is not, obviously, it's not the fact of how it is, things are happening. It just, you are creating all this stuff here now and you are seeing it that way. So, many times it doesn't work, but this time, yesterday, I was like, having a conversation, and I realized this was like really something that he saw in the moment. Before I talked about this, I went to this events and stuff, and I heard something new, and it have changed me. He usually come up with this idea of not, that's okay. I understand. It's the Tony Robbins haha moments. Okay, you gotta, and when you felt good, that's good. But yesterday, it was something different. I'm pretty sure he saw something that's a lot more different than whatever he saw it before.
Yeah.
I think that's so neat. The if you can get someone to the point where, no, it's only when I think of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what I've seen over the last little while is that, either two things happen. It stops them cold, or they go, yeah, only when I think about it, but then blah, 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 blah. And so it seems to have, we're hoping for that positive, that insight around it. But so often it's like, stop. Did
you hear yourself? Yeah.
Did you hear what you just said?
Yeah.
You said I only experience it when I'm thinking about it. And like, I'm getting goosebumps, and they're just like,
yeah.
It's it's a bit of a segue, but in my conversation with Sun, we ended up talking about misplaced keys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking about small moments of insight. And I was telling you this story the other day. I had misplaced my keys, and I was in a hurry. I'm like, walking back and forth. I'm looking for my keys. I'm looking for my keys. I can't find my keys. So my keys, in effect, they don't exist anymore, because there's no keys. Keys don't exist. And I walked out of the kitchen towards the living room and kind of stopped and went, okay, what's going on? Turned back, looked back into the kitchen. My keys were sitting on the counter, like 2 feet, like a foot from where I'd walked 6 times, and had not seen them at all.
Oh, so you just created the key at that moment.
Well, it was just like as soon as I yeah, that's right. as soon as I calmed down, as soon as I stopped trying so hard, I saw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and maybe that's what maybe I'm sharing that because that's what I'm resonating with these days, which is just the less I try to make something happen deliberately, the easier it is to see.
Yeah, the key thing is it makes it really clear, like in Three Principles, the thought, consciousness lights up thought and brings it to life. Well, the brings it to life is it like brings you evidence through your senses, right? So that your senses, we think that, we say that our senses are showing us what's out there. But Three Principles says, well, whatever thought is coming alive, the way it's coming alive is through your senses. Your senses will now bring you evidence of the thinking. So when your keys are lost, you cannot find them. So they can't. You can't. Because so when you know that the keys are lost, you cannot see them either. Your senses cannot bring evidence of them.
Oh, yeah.
They cannot bring evidence that the truth you know, and the truth you know is only what you think, right? So when that truth is there, then your senses respond to it, and they bring you evidence of the truth. And the keys are nowhere to be found, and they are lost. Yeah. Now, whatever you did that distracted you, whatever you did that forgot and figured when are you going to find them? Well, now that's no longer the thought. so you can walk by the kitchen counter, and there are keys, right?
That's so interesting, though, right? Like,
I relate to that because Abraham said, that's an Abraham quote, is you cannot find something that is lost.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah.
It does make sense, though. But only thing I have with this theory or concept, idea, whatever it is that, the outside, whatever it is, it's working perfectly, right? However we're supposed to be. Only thing that is changing constantly is our thought in the moment. For this key case, right? Sometime I have this idea that, outside kind of reflect what is my inside. So the key being lost, it's just me not thinking about the key, or my whatever in my consciousness or thought, the key is not there, right?
Yeah.
But when I have this key in my thought, it comes outside the actual world. But there is a problem, because there are things that I am not thinking about in the moment. It's already out there too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So how you could stop, there are some people who spiritually spiritual quest, whatever, they kind of assume that you are thinking and you are creating the world. But I for once don't think that's how it works. I don't know how you guys think. It just, the world is out there. We are just only seeing whatever our thought in the moment can see.
So this is such a coincidence, or maybe it's not. But I was listening to a podcast of a Jewish rabbi talking about Kabbalah. He used this metaphor, which might hit on exactly what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So first of all, in Three Principles, they distinguish the principle of thought versus my thought, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the energy of life, that energy which is creating all. And so we kind of trip ourselves up when we go, well, when I'm thinking about it, then it's there. But it isn't my thinking about it that creates keys. It's like, anyway, thought. I don't know how to describe. But okay, so then he says, today we have metaphors that can help us with this. And he says video games, or he said on a computer, you can actually create a world, like literally a world with people and places and all kinds of things. And you can create that in a computer. And so he says, this gives us a metaphor like the creator. Imagine God can create a world. So there's an energy that creates a world. And he said, so you go through, you create this entire world. He says, what would happen if you unplug the computer? And literally the whole world would disappear. It would cease to exist. So his metaphor had, without the energy of that, this energy, that whole world would disappear. So when you say, I walk out front and I see a house and I see other people, that is because thought is coming into form. Not your thought. The principle of thought.
Okay.
Without God's attention, you would not be alive. And without God's attention, that tree would not be there. Without that energy, that principle of thought, none of that would be there.
Dominic, can you send that to me? What or what?
Yeah. It was a podcast, and I haven't. Yeah, I thought it was a bit irrelevant. Like, I started and I haven't even finished it, but I just kind of got to that point, and I just thought, oh my God, that's like the coolest metaphor.
Yeah, if you take the energy source away, there's nothing, is there?
Yeah. And so that gave me a different way to think about when people talk in 3P about the principle of thought. And then they say, hey, it's all one thing, mind, thought, consciousness. We're talking about the energy, like all of that. And then I'm thinking, oh, yeah, wait a minute. And I mean, I always knew this. It's not me creating it, but it's all being created from that. Because when I say me created, I'm usually, when I'm saying that, I refer to me, like this guy. but I myself am created by it. Like, this guy is here because of God's attention. Yeah.
Okay.
This is crap.
What are you seeing, Arvin?
Yeah.
No, before, I now, like, a little bit clearly I could kind of see this, because before it's my idea how the world is created is me creating, right? When you say, you are also created by that more powerful form or formless stuff, then it makes sense.
And don't forget I've got to think this a little bit more, kind of see this a little bit more, but let's not forget the co-creation in it. In other words, Arvin, when you say, oh, but you know what, but I'm not, and I'm speaking for myself here, when I would talk like, well, I'm one who's more, I'm not athletic. Oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. So see how I'm contributing to the creation, the co-creating of this me.
You're not doing your job, Dominic.
I am doing my part, right? Because as far as in my mind, now for God, I've never thought of this before. So for God, I'm created as pure potential and possibility. That's what God sees. But when I look, I see this guy who's, not athletic. He's interested in this, not that. Oh, I'm good at these things and not those things. So I do my part to take that pure potential and possibility that God sees, and I whittle it down into something I can actually grasp.
which is fraught with pitfalls too, isn't it? Because
Oh,
that narrowing it down becomes really exclusive, doesn't it?
Well, you know, I don't want to be overwhelmed.
Right. Oh, that's a neat topic, man. We should come. We gotta. Arvin, sorry, just before you jumped on, I have a meetup that I facilitate monthly, and there's always one conflict with the book club, and it happens to be today. So, if any one of us could remember this, I think this is a neat thing to explore. I mean, and what I was thinking as you guys were talking was, but there is a co-creative aspect to it.
Yes.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
There, on a personal level, there has to be a co-creation there. But anyway, I got to run.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
have a wonderful rest of the Saturdays. Jesse Lynn, once again, all the best. Finley, all the best. We'll see you soon, dude. And so next is Jack, and I'll put some stuff on the Facebook pages, and we'll see you all soon.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great talking to y'all.
All right.
Yeah,
See you. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.